Hello, I'm Jason Stoller. I'm a product manager here at Precision Planting, and I'd like to welcome you to this session of Winter Conference. The topic we're going to talk about is one that's been a part of our DNA for a long time. In fact, for over 15 years, we've been researching planter residue management and the row cleaner. This past year, though, our engineers and our agronomists have taken it to the next level, and we're going to share with you some new innovation for the first time that's come from that research. You know, a good stand is the start to maximizing your yield potential. And the cost of poor emergence is one that's felt all the way through the year. In fact, just a few hours delay in emergence is going to cost bushels. And as those hours turn into a day or two, that cost only increases. There's three factors that control the rate of emergence. The first is soil moisture, the second is soil temperature, and the third is seed to soil contact. Planter residue management is about that third aspect, seed to soil contact. The reason is as a seed comes in contact with a piece of residue instead of soil, that seed absorbs less moisture than what it would if it was entirely surrounded by soil. And so that means that the germination rate for that seed is slowed, and the result is a late emerging plant. So today, what do we do about it? Well, we start with a floating row cleaner. Because with a floating row cleaner, we can make cab adjustments now through the field as those conditions change. The simple addition of a clean sweep cylinder gives us exactly that ability. Not only that, but we can also add sensing technology to make the right decision on where to set that row cleaner. In the past, we had to rely on our eyes to do that, but it's different now with SmartFirmer. Justin McMenemy talked to you in the previous session how SmartFirmer will measure soil moisture, and it measures soil temperature, and it also does one more thing. It measures the actual residue in the trench itself. We now have the ability with those optical sensors in SmartFirmer to know exactly how much residue that seed is experiencing as it's being planted. Not only that, but with the 2020, there's visibility in the cab for you as you're planting to know exactly that number. We call it clean furrow percent. We can use clean furrow percent to make adjustments to the row cleaner and to dial in that pressure to know exactly where to set our row cleaner. The cost of residue in the trench is one that shows up in yield, and it shows up in a big way. And I want to share with you some data. This comes from our Pontiac PTI farm. This was a multi-year study where we had specific clean furrow percents, and we're looking at the actual yield for the different clean furrow percents. For every 1% clean furrow that we decrease, there is a 1.2 bushel in yield that is costing us. Some growers in North Dakota did their own side-by-side yield trials that's very similar to this. In this case, in the same field, they were able to increase their clean furrow percent from 85 to 98% by using Clean Sweep and SmartFirmer to make adjustments and dial in their planter residue management program. And their side-by-side yield turned into a 25 bushel advantage. That's 1.9 bushels for every percent clean furrow that they were able to increase by making adjustments in the cab and utilizing technology like SmartFirmer. Not always, though, can we actually achieve 98% clean furrow, and I want to share an example with you that's really close to home for me because it's my field. It's a mile from my house near Eureka, Illinois. This is a field that was planted this past spring in a condition exactly like this because this photo was taken on the day we planted it. On the planter, we had floating row cleaners, we had Clean Sweep, and we had SmartFirmer on every row. I would say this was a challenging environment, and we were running about 30 psi of pressure on the Clean Sweep cylinders, and that was about as aggressive as we could be for the conditions. So let's take a look at the clean furrow percent that SmartFirmer is telling us. Very different than the Messers in North Dakota, we were only able to achieve 90% clean furrow. That means that 10% of those seeds were experiencing risk of being late emergers. It's this field in this year that shows exactly the issue that our R&D team has been focused on addressing. How do we take a condition like this, a challenging residue condition, and actually achieve a 95, a 98, a 99% clean furrow? How do we do it in a way where we can accomplish that not just in one spot in the field, but across the entire field and on a foot-by-foot level? And how do we do that in a way where there's no impact to the rest of the row cleaner or the planter as a whole? It starts by understanding the limitations that exist with today's row cleaners. And there's some very specific mechanical limitations that I want to talk about. The first is the cleaning performance across conditions like the field that I shared, where, as you can see Corey walking from one row to the next and on a foot-by-foot basis, he's able to see, and we were able to see the differences and the challenges that that residue condition provided and the limitations that today's row cleaners had for a field like that. The second is the flotation challenges in loose soils. A floating row cleaner is designed to follow the ground, and it's designed to do that, and it does so much better than a fixed row cleaner, but in loose soils it's actually does so very poorly. There's a specific reason for that, and it comes back to the actual physics. A floating row cleaner that's mounted to the row is a pushing style design. So that means it's pushing against the ground, and so as the ground engages it, those forces are being transmitted through to the row unit, and very little of those forces actually go into allowing it to follow the ground and to follow the topography of the ground. There's a third aspect that's linked to that as well, but it's one that's not so obvious. It's the negative impact to seed placement and depth. A row cleaner that's mounted to the row unit itself, all of those forces go through to the row unit, and so the row unit now has to manage all of those forces. The first impact to seed placement and depth is the row unit ride quality. Doug Wiegand in the previous session, he talked to you about the row unit ride sensor. That tells us how smoothly the row unit is actually riding or how rough it's riding. The row cleaner has a direct impact on row unit ride quality. It's not something that's obvious because we usually think about the row unit as a system, and that includes the row cleaner. But if we separate out the impact of the row cleaner from the row unit, it becomes much more obvious. Take a look at the actual row unit ride sensor data here. So what you're seeing on the left is the row unit ride sensor signal where we had no row cleaner engaged. On the right is where we had 60 psi of down pressure to the row cleaner. The difference is only linked to the fact that the row cleaner's impact on the row unit ride quality. In fact, the row unit ride is almost twice as rough when we had the row cleaner engaged than when we actually didn't. Now I want to give you an example that might be more similar to softer grounds where you're running your row cleaner in a float or running maybe around 0 psi of down pressure. You would expect that the row unit ride should be identical if the row cleaner is able to truly float and follow the ground. That's not at all the case. Take a look at the data here. On the left is where we have no row cleaner engaged. On the right is where it's engaged, where it's intending to float. There's almost 3 times as poor of ride quality just because of the row cleaner's role on the row unit itself. And it's not just row unit ride that's impacted. Downforce consistency is absolutely impacted just as much. If you remember from Doug Wiegand's session, the gauge wheel weight is measured with a load pin, and that's what we call downforce. Let's take a look at the actual gauge wheel weight or load pin signal data between when we have a row cleaner engaged and when we don't. On the left is when we don't have it engaged. On the right is when we had the row cleaner at 60 psi of down pressure. Notice how much less consistent that downforce is just because of the row cleaner's impact on the row unit itself. The gauge wheel load pin and the row unit ride sensor and the smart firmer are all pointing to the fact that there exists a need for a better row cleaner. And that's exactly what our engineering team has been focused on. Reimagining what a row cleaner should look like and do. One that truly has zero negative impact to the row unit performance, that does no harm one that optimizes flotation in loose soils, but also can be aggressive in your no-tills, one that truly offers superior residue cleaning across conditions. After a decade of research and over a year and a half of product concepting, an intense season of validation, I'd like to introduce to you for the first time Reveal. Reveal truly reimagines the row cleaner from the ground up. Here's what it looks like. It's a revolutionary new row cleaner design that's entirely isolated from the row unit. The trailing design with parallel arms allow it to follow the ground. The toe and camber angles of the cleaning wheels have been optimized for narrow and wide planters, and the curved notch teeth provide superior performance. The row cleaner engagement depth is controlled with an internal gauge wheel rather than treaders that allow incredible cleaning performance across conditions. With dual airbags for both down and lift, we've essentially integrated the ease of clean sweep cab adjustability directly into the row cleaner design. Now, let's go to the shop and take a look at it. All right, well, let's take a look at Reveal up close. I'm going to start at the top and we'll work our way down. Reveal interfaces to the planer with an adapter bracket that mounts to the W plate. That provides a direct, rigid mount to the frame itself, and it allows us to entirely isolate the vibrations of the row cleaner from affecting the rest of the row unit performance. That adapter bracket is installed in a way where the row unit does not have to be removed, and it also allows a quick adapter interface to allow Reveal to hang or mount to that adapter bracket as a second install step that's very simple. Reveal has a set of parallel arms. Those parallel arms provide a significant advantage in allowing us to maximize the total vertical travel that Reveal is able to achieve, and that's very comparable to what a traditional row cleaner has in terms of its vertical travel. Inside of those parallel arms, there's a set of dual airbags, and those dual airbags provide the same exact functionality that Clean Sweep gives us. Those dual airbags are controlled in the cab with a manual regulator, or in this case, the 2020. So I'm going to go into 2020, and I'm going to apply lift pressure to go ahead and raise that row cleaner entirely up. So you're able to see the total amount of vertical travel that we're able to achieve that very much matches what a traditional row cleaner has in its vertical travel. I'm going to go ahead and lower it now. It's the trailing parallel arms that give us the ability to float and follow the ground in soft and loose soils. And so to demonstrate that, I want to contrast Reveal to a traditional row cleaner itself. We've got both row cleaners set up. We're applying lift pressure, so we're in a float mode. So I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to simulate the ground force as if I'm the ground engaging the ground itself. So as I apply force, it's actually very difficult for the force from my hand to allow that traditional row cleaner to float. Most of it's going into the row, and in fact, the stand itself was moving when I did that. Now if I do the same thing to Reveal, in this case, Reveal very easily is able to follow that ground, and those forces go into allowing it to truly float. If we take a look at the parallel arms connect to the row cleaner wheels with a nose frame. That nose frame is designed to be configurable. It's now set up for a 30-inch planer, but for narrow row planers, we can take that same nose frame and configure those wheels for a narrower toe angle and achieve good cleaning performance for narrow row planers as well. Those cleaning wheels are a curved notch design. They're a hybrid between a traditional spike and a more aggressive tooth design, and they've really provided a benefit in no-till as well as conventional soils above both what you'd see with a traditional spike or a curved tooth. As we move past the cleaning wheels themselves and we look at Reveal as a whole, we've designed Reveal really robustly, from the casting design to the wear components. In fact, we've leveraged a lot of the components from Furrow Force into Reveal. So the parallel arms that you see, we're using the same composite serviceable bushings that we had on Furrow Force. On the cleaning wheels, we've selected bearings that have a premium seal package. It's probably the internal gauge wheel, though, that most differentiates Reveal from a traditional row cleaner. Traditional row cleaners have a treader, and their purpose is to provide a depth stop. They do so actually very poorly. Not only that, but as those teeth wear, we actually lose engagement. With Reveal, we've got an internal gauge wheel. Not only that, but that internal gauge wheel, we have the ability to set the depth of the tines relative to that gauge wheel exactly where we need it. That gives us a benefit across conditions where we can set it where we need to, and then simply rely on pressure adjustments in the cab to make sure that there's sufficient force or pressure to keep those teeth fully engaged in that gauge wheel on the ground. There's another benefit, though, that we've seen that's really intriguing with that gauge wheel, and that's the fact that in looser soils, that gauge wheel actually does a little bit of firming action. And so that firming action gives us the ability to preserve moisture in loose soils where that's very important, and also it prevents dry soil from collapsing that can happen when we have opening discs running through very loose soils. You know, what you're seeing here with Reveal has been the result of a 1.5 years of design and testing. And we've had Reveal in Illinois, we've had it in Iowa, we've had it on planters in Australia and Argentina. Corey Mulbauer has been leading the U.S. plot activities and validation activities with Reveal, and he's going to share with you some of the plot results and what we're seeing from the field from this past year.
Thanks, Jason. I'm looking forward to being able to share with you guys what we learned in the field testing Reveal this year. It's exciting to get to be a part of a new product concept, especially a concept that is going to change the way that we plant and the opportunities that we create in performance of our planter by finding a better way to do it. When we're in the field, it's not just me out there evaluating opportunities. Quite often we have a whole group of R&D guys, like in this picture. We're almost like a paparazzi filming the new product and helping each other talk through the opportunities to improve it and make it even better. So as we talk through what we saw in the field this year, we're going to go through 3 different field scenarios where I evaluated Reveal. The first one is in Jason Stoller's field. This environment is a clay loam soil, and last fall they ran a horse joker across the field to do light tillage to break up the corn stalks and chew up some of the root balls. We're planting soybeans into the stale seed bed this spring, and the corn stalk residue and root balls is the primary issue that the row cleaners are having to deal with. As we watch the video I'm about to play, I want you to focus on row 13. Row 13 has the one Reveal prototype that we had available early in the spring, and watch how it interacts in this environment versus the Martin row cleaners with clean sweep on the other rows. Watch for Reveal's ground engagement capability. Reveal does a phenomenal job of hugging the ground and staying engaged where it can flip out of the way all of those root balls and corn stalks. What frustrates me about the typical floating row cleaner with clean sweep is that it's constantly bouncing up and over some of the harder to move obstacles like those root balls. And so as you watch it run, every time those other row cleaners bounce, that frustrates me, and I'm thinking we just lost an opportunity to clean that path ahead of the row unit as best we can. Ian Radke, the lead designer, and I spent quite a bit of time walking around behind the planter, and we went to those spots where those Martin row cleaners with clean sweep bounced up and over the root balls, and it was very evident that we had an advantage with the concept of Reveal at the time. Reveal, staying better engaged with the ground, more consistently had a good clean path ahead of the row unit, where every time we saw those Martins bounce, we always found root balls and corn stalks in the path of the row unit, causing problems with potential emergence in the future. On your 2020, you have the ability to look at the metrics from either downforce or your smart firmers when you get to the end of a pass or for a whole field. So we did that as we evaluated the Reveal row versus the others. On the downforce metrics, the Reveal row increased the good ride percentage by 5.6% in the Stoller field. And on the Smart Firmer metrics page, we increased the clean furrow value by 2.9%. The next field we went to is on Andrew Miller's farm. He farms sandy loam soils, and they strip till in the fall, and we're planting corn on corn back into those strips in the spring. with the sandy loam, we have a very soft soil environment. So in this environment with clean sweep standard row cleaners, you need to run a pretty good amount of lift pressure so you don't plow a trench and move too much soil. Watch here as reveal, again still on row 13, how it performs in the soft environment versus the other row cleaners with clean sweep. The ability to independently set the gauge wheel and tine depth separate from your down pressure setting that you choose with the air pressure enables flotation in this field environment, again maintaining a very good positive engagement with the soil. The other row cleaners having to run with a lot of lift pressure are bouncing and moving a lot, again indicating that they're causing problems on the row unit and they're not cleaning the furrow as well as they could. The metrics that we pulled from this field, the reveal row was averaging an increase of 4.9% on good ride, and we're averaging an increase of 1.6% on clean furrow. Later in the spring, we had time to build up a few more rows of reveal. And now we've got enough rows on our 12-row planter where we were able to do some agronomic trials to take it to yield and evaluate the different adjustments and different design aspects of the reveal row unit versus the standard Martins and Yetters with clean sweep. The environment that we're in are the Ackerman fields up by Morton. They're clay loam soils in a no-till corn on bean residue environment. Here's a video watching reveal run alongside the planter, and you can just see that no-till environment's a very firm footprint. Row cleaners have a pretty good ability to be running in a down pressure setting where they can really engage that soybean residue and do a good job of cleaning it out of the way. The trials that we put in, we did a highly replicated trial of reveal versus Yetter on the other half the planter, but we didn't just want to compare the concepts themselves. We wanted to take the opportunity to learn about reveal settings. So this first field that we're going to look at, we want to learn what impact do we have by applying pressure or weight on a gauge wheel right in front of the row unit. That's a concept that's different than any other row cleaner in the market. So we set up a trial where we went from 0 to 80 psi of applied pressure on reveal, and then we want to look at all of the things we could measure on planting performance to learn if it has any kind of impact at all. So you see the dark green bars there representing the pressure settings that we applied to reveal from 0 to 80 pounds, and then the far left, the light green bar, is the Yetter row cleaner that was on the other half the planter, and we're running it at 20 psi down pressure with clean sweep. So on average, the reveal rows required 44 pounds less down pressure in this field than the Yetter row cleaner, and there wasn't much difference in this case based on the pressure settings that we tested with reveal. Then we looked at the row unit ride. Across the board, no matter what the pressure setting was with reveal, we improved row unit ride a little bit compared to the rows with Yetter. But we didn't see anything stand out as far as any difference in row unit ride by the amount of pressure we applied to the reveal row cleaner. Seems like the advantage it's creating is just being frame mounted and off of the row unit. That better ride did improve the spacing. So the SRI metric on our 2020 represents how good a job we're doing with spacing consistency, and the lower the number, the better. We improved SRI by about 1.5, again indicating that reveal is adding value to the row unit performance. Didn't see much difference based on the pressure setting that we had with the different treatments. Clean furrow was fairly equal across the board, including equal to the Yetter row cleaner with clean sweep. In a no-till environment where you can run a floating row cleaner with clean sweep with 20 psi down pressure, it typically does a very good job of cleaning ahead of the row unit. So it makes sense to me that cleaning was fairly equal across the board. All row cleaners in this plot were doing a good job cleaning that soybean residue ahead of the planter. When we went back and looked at emergence at V3, things started to step out a little bit. We improved emergence with reveal compared to the Yetter slightly, but we also started to see a response to the different pressure settings that we ran reveal at. And the 55 psi setting ended up being the best in the plot. Then we came back and we harvested and looked at yield, and we got an even stronger response to the pressure settings of reveal. And we weren't sure at the time whether we should be nervous about this, or is it telling us an opportunity that we have that we didn't think about yet. At the 55 psi down pressure setting of Reveal, we hit the maximum yield, and it ended up being a 15.4 bushel advantage over the Yetter with Clean Sweep. Another plot that we did in the same area, we wanted to look at, instead of the pressure settings of Reveal, we were going to adjust the tine depth. One of the features of Reveal is independently setting the depth of the cleaning wheels and how deep those tines engage into the soil relative to the gauge wheel and the air pressure that you choose. So in this plot, we went from the shallowest to the deepest tine engagement depth, and we also looked at no row cleaner, and we were able to compare this to the Yetter with Clean Sweep at 20 psi down across 3 replications in the plot. Again, it was a no-till field with soybean residue on the surface. When we look at the yield results from this field, we had a very strong correlation to the tine depth engagement that we set the Reveal at. And so this is very interesting to us. First off, what you notice is the value of a row cleaner in general. So where we had no row cleaner versus the Yetter row cleaner, there's a 5 bushel advantage to a floating row cleaner with Clean Sweep on it. But notice how much greater of an opportunity Reveal is showing us by having different types of adjustments on this row cleaner. There's as high as 14 bushel advantage with the best tine depth setting in this plot, and again, it's replicated 3 times across the field. So we went back to our notes and we wanted to evaluate, all right, the cleaning capability, the ability to move residue was not 14 bushel better on the Reveal row units. What was it about those that created such a large yield advantage? So we looked at our notes and we said, okay, the winning treatment in both plots was very similar. The first plot, we had a tine depth of about 1 inch, and we were applying 55 psi down pressure. The second plot, we had a tine depth of 1.25 inches, and we were applying 60 psi down pressure. Very, very similar settings that won the plot. And then we started thinking about, well, maybe it's the accumulation of all of the improvements we're making on the planter. And when we took those rows and we evaluated it versus the Yetter, we realized that we have all these marginal improvements of 1.3% improvement in good ride, a 1.9 improvement in SRI for better spacing. We used 67 pounds less applied downforce on the Reveal rows. We had an improvement of 1.2% furrow uniformity, and we had good row cleaning and residue management pretty much across the board. These added up to a little over 1% improvement in emergence, and overall 14.7 bushel per acre advantage of the best Reveal setting in these plots compared to the Yetter on the other side of the planter. So those things probably all add up, but then we thought of one more aspect. We said, what did we change in those rows that could have a yield impact at the end of the season? And we got to thinking about it. If tine engagement and aggressiveness adds value like the yield showed us, it's probably the fact that we actually changed the microenvironment around the seed at planting. Think about, what does 1 inch of tine engagement do to that zone that we're going to place the seed? It's tillage. And we think that we actually discovered that there's value in doing microenvironment tillage right in front of the planter row unit. It's kind of maybe like a mini strip till machine that's an additional feature added into a row cleaner if we're able to manage it without plowing a trench and moving too much soil. To support that, we pulled the weather data, and it backed up the story very well. The weather data from the day of planting was fairly cool. Lows in the 50s, highs in the 60s, slow accumulation of heat units to get to emergence. It actually took 11 days to emerge in these 2 plots that we planted. So with that slow emergence timing, that tillage in the microenvironment around the seed likely could have added value in faster vigor and faster emergence compared to the other rows. So we believe there's another aspect of row cleaning that we didn't plan on in the beginning, and we're going to do more research on this next year as we build out more Reveal row cleaners to test in the field and learn more about this opportunity as well as all of the other value adds that we've measured with the row unit dynamics and that sort of thing. To sum it all up, my experiences from this year, the benefits of Reveal are better ground engagement of the row cleaner, better flotation of the row cleaner, improved cleaning capability in most field scenarios, smoother path for the row unit to ride on, lower row unit downforce demand, and I think likely in the long term it's going to reduce the row unit wear and tear and cost to keep a row unit operating well just on those wear parts by carrying less down pressure and having a smoother ride. This fall's been a lot of beautiful weather. We actually extended our planting season by over a month because the weather's been so warm and so dry. We spent quite a bit of time out continuing to learn and evaluate the performance of Reveal. In fact, we spent so much time focusing on the left side of the planter. In some fields, we didn't even realize that there was problems happening with the other row cleaners on the other side of the planter, like in this 260 bushel fresh harvested corn residue field where we really struggled to get flow through on this planter in general, and we built up this gigantic pile and nobody was watching until it got this big. So we had to stop back up and spread this all out for the farmer before we kept going. All said and done, we've been having a lot of fun, we've been learning a lot, and we're looking forward to next year. Matt Morgan, a former engineer and now the business lead for precision planting down in Argentina, he visited Illinois this fall and he joined us in the evaluation and testing of Reveal in the fields. When Matt found out that we had Reveal in the field, he showed up in his car and he jumped out and he started chasing the planter immediately. Later on, we pulled up alongside of him in the gator and we offered him a ride. Matt is continuing to bird dog the Reveal research down in Argentina, and he's doing a phenomenal job. We're going to go to the field and hear from Matt to see what he's learning down there. Matt?
Thanks, Corey. Welcome, everybody, to Argentina. My name is Matt Morgan, and I'm the Precision Planting Business Lead here. I want to welcome you to Don Alfredo, a farm in Córdoba, Argentina. That's in the center of the country. And this is one of the 6th largest corn-producing states in the world. That's right, in all of the globe. And you combine that with 80% no-till, and you have an amazing environment to learn about residue and how to prepare the way for that row unit to position every seed to achieve its full potential. Now, as Corey mentioned, I had the privilege back in October to join the Reveal team in the US and to watch Reveal in action, see how it worked. And as I came back here in November, the precision planting team here, along with our dealers, have been hard at work. Now imagine it's the week of Thanksgiving and you're getting your equipment pulled into the shed, you're getting that Thanksgiving dinner fired up with friends and family. You've got your favorite game on the big screen. Here, we're pulling the planters out of the shed and we're rolling. It's 85 degrees, we've got a little bit of rain, it's time to plant. So we've been hard at work. These 5 plots that we've been able to put in across the country started the week of Thanksgiving and are still finishing up today, just a few days short of Christmas. So you can imagine we're working to learn and see the very same things that Jason described. We're looking at how does a cleaning system perform? Does it do no harm as it rolls across that field? Is it able to float and handle the diverse conditions, the topography changes? Is it able to do superior cleaning in a field like this where you're every 9 inches blasting across a fresh cut wheat row? And what we're seeing is those same core principles are critical to emergence. Now, I want to show you what we're doing. So imagine we went to the local grocery store, got some shish kebab sticks. You guys were having Thanksgiving dinner, but we were making shish kebabs here. And we took some paint and we painted our shish kebab sticks so that we can track every day, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, when did these plants come out of the ground? And we're able then to not only count those plants to see the uniformity of emergence, but we're able to track all the way to yield what was the impact of uniform emergence on the productivity of every farm. We're learning a lot, even in these early weeks where the crops are fresh. I think of a field in another location where there was a lot of topography. And in that topography, you have these runoff trenches where the residue's piled on the banks and it's clean in the center. Let me tell you, being able to float across, maintain consistent engagement of a cleaner is critical in that environment. And we're seeing somewhere between a 7 to 10% emergence difference by having a good row cleaner, by having Reveal. That's 7 to 10 more plants out of every 100 that are coming out of the ground like their neighbors. Now you take a field like this. In this field here, it's a different challenge. The challenge is, how do you cross every 9 to 10 inches one of these old wheat rows? And what we're seeing is that 2 to 3 plants are impacted every time that row unit crosses an old wheat row. That's 2 to 3 plants that are maybe 2-3 days delayed, or maybe they don't emerge at all. And yet, when you're able to do superior cleaning and to float and do no harm in the process, we're seeing a consistency of emergence even as you cross these old wheat rows. That's a big impact, and one of many reasons why we're excited for what Reveal can do to improve the cleanliness of the furrow, to blaze a trail for the row unit here in Argentina and across the world. Well, I've enjoyed sharing with you just some of the lessons we've been learning so far with Reveal. And stay tuned. We hope to share more of the yield impact and the results of our work in the days ahead. But before I send it back to Jason up in the cold north, I want to offer you a chance to ride along with Reveal. At the PTI farm, maybe you've heard of our Ride and Drive program. But here in Argentina, I want to take you on a ride-along program where you can ride along with Reveal and watch it go over those runoff ditches and soybean residue. You can watch it in some heavy, nasty corn residue. And you can see it here, even in this very field, as it blasts across these wheat rows. So I want you to join now for a ride-along as we ride with Reveal through the fields, and then we'll send it back to Jason up in Tremont.
Fasten your seatbelts as we ride along with Reveal in action here in Argentina. First up, heavy corn residue. That corn cover is intense. It's covering almost the entire surface, and yet we want to blaze a trail. We want to keep that tire engaged, keep those teeth spinning, and we don't want to drag that residue. Next, we're into heavy wheat stubble. And here the challenge is similar. We don't want to grab those old stalks and bind and drag, but we want to break through. And you can see on the lower left, we're crashing through those old root balls, clearing a great trail for the row unit. Finally, we're into heavy soybean residue, but there's topography, there's runoff ditches, and we've got to float in and out of those ditches and manage the diverse ground cover underneath. Reveal's doing it and blazing a trail for the row unit to succeed. Well, I hope you enjoyed that short ride along with Reveal in Argentina, and we've been learning a lot. So much of what we've been discovering in these past months has turned into the new design improvements you see today. We're excited for Reveal to come to a field near you and to learn even more about how to set the row unit up for great success with a cleaner furrow and position each seed to achieve its full potential.
Well, thanks, Matt. The success of Reveal in Argentina has confirmed the benefit that we've seen here in testing in Illinois. From here, we'll be conducting large-scale beta testing on planters across the U.S. as well as South America for this next season. And we'll be excited to share more with you after this coming spring. Thank you.